Hi, I'm Jessica Stutzman from Millcreek Township.
And I'm Chantel Rodriguez. Welcome to the Millcreek Government Channel.
We're pleased to be joined by Corporal Shollenberger from the Millcreek Police Department and Saxon Daugherty, Safety Press Officer with PennDOT, who is here to talk about roadway safety, local projects, and how the community can stay informed and safe. Thank you both so much for being here today. I'm really enjoying looking forward to talking about this subject.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing, again, we're really talking all about safety. Can you guys define for me distracted driving?
Really, distracted driving is anything that takes somebody's attention away from the act of driving. We have a saying at PennDOT we like to use a lot, which is driving requires 100% of your attention 100% of the time. And all too common nowadays, we see people that are distracted by not only cell phones, but other passengers in the car, maybe some stress from things at work that they're thinking about. Weekend plans or vacations that are coming up. So there's just so many things that keep people's mind away from driving when they're behind the wheel, and it puts other people and themselves in danger.
And then have you guys seen maybe a shift or an evolution in over time? Because, I think, back to the 90s and the 2000s, and we were all, messing with our CD players and the radio. Have you seen like an active shift in time of what people are distracted with?
I see there's more safety devices added to the car with Bluetooth and the steering wheel, the buttons on the steering wheel to change the radio stations. So that has changed. But cell phones have become a huge distraction for drivers. Because there's so many things you can do with the applications and the videos on there that sometimes people get on there and they believe that they're able to concentrate on two things at once.
It doesn't matter if it's an older, mature driver or a young driver just starting out. Everybody's susceptible to it, which is scary. So that's why we're trying to do a lot of awareness and programming to get ahead of it and worry about prevention so that people know when they get behind the wheel the ways that they can stay safe.
Yeah, and what makes distracted driving so dangerous to other motorists that are out on the road?
Well, primarily, like I mentioned, you're not focused on the act of driving, and we know that driving can be made up of split-second decisions. So if you take 1 second to look down at a text message that you got from a friend or a family member, that's all it takes for you to cross the center line and hit another vehicle head-on. It can cost you your life or an innocent family their life. So it's endangering everybody on the roadway, and it's, again, you're not intending to do anything wrong, but you're subconsciously just not focused completely on driving.
Yeah, and I think with both of us having kids, we're always driving and then there's a fight going on in the back or somebody wants your attention on something. So I think even realizing that those little things, it's still distracted driving one way or another.
100%.
Yeah, it all adds up. And, and I think, we were just talking before the show started about bus stop safety. And one of the biggest, concerns I have, again, is protecting, the kiddos in the back seat and then protecting, the kiddos who are at a bus stop or maybe just on the sidewalk playing with, sidewalk chalk. And I just want to make sure that, when I'm the driver that, again, that I am not distracted, but I'm human, I'm not perfect, and I'm glad we're talking about this today. How often does distracted driving lead to crashes on our roadway, and what are some of the maybe unexpected or unintended consequences of those crashes?
Well, crashes are pretty frequent, as you can imagine. Distracted driving is usually one of the top handful of causes or factors involved in crashes. So in Pennsylvania 2023, we're still finalizing data from 24. We had over 11,000 crashes involving distracted drivers, and that led to 65 fatalities. And if you just focus on the northwest corner of Pennsylvania, including Erie County, we had 6 fatalities with 540 total crashes.
Wow.
So that's a lot. And the number should ultimately be 0. We talk a lot about types of crashes that can be avoided, and distracted, reckless type crashes are 100% avoidable. So it just comes down to better decision making. And then the fatalities are the unintended consequences. You're losing somebody. Now a family has to live the rest of their life without that loved one at the dinner table or to celebrate holidays or birthdays. So it's a serious thing. I mean, some people get lucky. They are involved in crashes and everybody comes out of it okay or with minor injuries. But all too frequently we're seeing people that suffer the ultimate consequence.
And speaking of distracted driving and losing a family member, sometimes the people I think that really put their life on the line with this are our first responders who are on the side of the road or, holding a stop sign or a slow sign, maybe even utility workers, people like that are there doing their job and someone is distracted and could potentially hit a pedestrian on the side of the street.
Yeah, our work zones, like right now, we're getting into the middle of construction season, so folks are going to start seeing those flaggers and our workers out there trying to do roadway improvements and bridge projects. And we just ask people to pay attention, put those phones away, and make sure they're keeping their attention on what's in front of them, because they never know when a piece of equipment or a worker could come out when they least expect it, and they need to be able to respond accordingly. I don't know if you want to touch on what you maybe see like at traffic stops and some of the things you guys observe.
On traffic stops, they have the move over law. If they have the ability to move into a different lane, say on 26th Street or 12th Street, that is enforceable by us. If you do not move over, you could be cited for not giving the lane to any vehicle with flashing lights, a tow truck, a PennDOT truck, anything. And most people are reasonably good, but we do have some close calls. So as officers, we have to be aware of our surroundings when we're doing the traffic stops to make sure that we're safe as well.
Right.
Yeah. And what is the state's current law in relation to distracted driving?
The current law is texting while driving. It's interactive cellular device. It's hard, I would say, from the police perspective, it's hard to enforce because you're still allowed to dial your phone, you're still allowed to talk on the phone, you're still allowed to hold the phone, but you're not allowed to text while the vehicle's moving. So if you're at a stoplight or stopped in traffic, you could still you could text at that point, but it's hard for us to enforce. If I see a phone in your hand, you could just be dialing it to call somebody or changing the settings on your GPS, which is all legal at this point. But it's hard for us as officers to see in your car for a limited time to be able to enforce that law.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's one other distracted driving thing that you just made me think of when it comes to, looking at your GPS. You might be looking down at your phone, somehow the map app gets canceled out. Now you've got to type, you're lost and you got to type in your address. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can be distracted.
The list is endless, to be honest. I mean, you could write for days the number of distractions, and it doesn't matter the situation you're in. All it takes is one of those to make a difference.
Yeah, I think we've seen plenty of times where, women are doing their makeup. Like, I could never do that. I just don't have the skills. But also, I couldn't be distracted that much as far as, me speaking to my kids is different than me actually doing a full-blown face makeup while I'm driving. Like, I just don't see how that happens.
Yeah, but you see everybody, eating while they're driving, things like that. Can you detail for us some of the other efforts being made to combat distracted driving?
I'll kind of start with this. So at PennDOT, we have a twofold approach with our traffic safety programming. My role specifically, I go out and do a lot of programming like this, where we just talk to the general public and keep them informed on ways to stay safe. But also we'll go into schools, we'll work with other community organizations and do programming for younger people. We even can do it like at senior living centers. Really anybody that we can reach to educate them on what's a danger to you, how can you stay safe, and here are the facts. And the numbers don't lie. Like we mentioned, that we're losing people, and they're people that are suffering serious injuries. And then on top of that, we partner a lot with our law enforcement representatives that are out there on the front lines trying to enforce these laws that we have. So I don't know how much you want to go into detail there, but I think it's a good twofold effort.
Yeah.
With the new Paul Miller law being in effect June 5th, that gives us a little more of a tool to enforce it. And with that law, it's a lot more stringent with cell phone use while you're driving, and it allows us to be a little bit more interactive with the public to educate them on distracted driving and cell phone use.
Now, and you mentioned the Paul Miller's law. Is this the new hands-free law going into effect later this year?
Correct.
And could you explain a little bit about that?
Well, just for some background, I want to make sure I get her name right. So Eileen was Paul Miller's mom. He was tragically killed in a crash in 2010 in Monroe County by a distracted driver in a tractor trailer. I believe he was reaching for a phone, took his eyes off the road and hit Paul. So that's a tragic loss, one of the folks that we just lost because of something that was avoidable. But ever since his death, his mother Eileen has been a real advocate for trying to get change in legislature to get more stringent laws. So this is one of those efforts, and it's named after him. But most commonly, you'll hear it as the hands-free law, and it does go into effect June 5th. But there's a little bit of a lull, so like the first year or so of it is going to be just a warning, and I'll let the corporal get into some more of the details of the enforcement. But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
With the new law, you can't have a phone in your hand at any point when the vehicle's on the roadway. So if you're at a traffic light, if you're stuck in traffic, you can't use your phone. You need to pull off the roadway to a safe spot and use your phone at that point.
So the Paul Miller law, will there be penalties associated with, and I know again the first year is just a warning, but will there be penalties associated with the violation of this law?
Yeah, so what we have is in June 5th, 2026, the violation for each violation will be a $50 fine plus court costs and other fees. So a $50 fine is going to turn into several $100s very quickly. Now, if a driver is convicted of homicide by vehicle and driving while distracted, that could lead to an additional 5 years in prison. So that does have an extra weight added onto it. So it's a little more stringent, like he said, to what we currently have with just the texting ban. This will be a little more comprehensive with having that device in your hand physically while you're driving.
And so as an officer, if you see somebody, holding the phone in their hand at a red light, at a stop sign, you would be able to pull them over at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a primary violation, and we can pull them over just for that.
And what's the difference between a primary violation and a secondary violation?
A secondary violation is a driver not wearing a seatbelt. If you're not wearing your seatbelt, I can't pull you over based solely upon not wearing your seatbelt. But if I stop you for speeding or a stop sign violation or any violation of the vehicle code, and you don't have it, I could cite you for both.
And so this Paul Miller law is going to be a primary violation?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, and what are some tips, that you can give motorists that can eliminate distractions while driving?
Well, there's a lot of easy things to do. So number one is designate your passenger, if you have one, to be like your texter, or to keep an eye on your phone. That way you're not tempted. Unless it's something confidential or work-related. If it's something easy they can respond to, let them do that. Also, there's driving mode in pretty much every phone that's come out in the last couple of years, which will send automated messages to anybody that reaches out to you that says, hey, I'm driving. I'll respond to you when I'm able to do so. If it's something you really need to respond to or check, you need to get off the road, and not just off to the side like on the curb on the interstate. That could be very dangerous. You want to get off at the next exit, find a parking lot where you can pull off, make your phone call, answer the text message or email, and move on. But you never want to just pull over on the side of the road. That, again, can lead to some more tragic scenarios. And then you could also put it in a glove compartment, turn it off, especially for phones. That way you're not tempted whatsoever. And then just make sure that your passengers, are understanding that they can be a distraction to you as well, and you can be a good passenger to others that you're riding in the car with. Try not to get them to take their eyes off the wheel. You can have a conversation with them, of course, but there's a point where it becomes too distracting and they need to be able to focus. So be able to stand up and speak up when you feel like it could be unsafe. Not a lot of people do that, and I think it could make a big difference if people found their voice.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, social media is such a big thing that people feel the need to stay plugged in, and that's even while driving. So I've seen people that will literally be recording a video while driving, and I don't know how they can do that and then also pay attention to the road. So it really makes it a point to kind of just drive. Like,
in
you
reality,
don't
they
have to
can't
that.
do both. They
Yeah.
can't. You're just lucky that you didn't end up in a crash. There's a lot of research out there that shows, being distracted is almost the equivalent of having a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or the legal limit. Same thing goes for sleep too. Like if you're too tired when you're out there behind the wheel, you're going to have impaired vision and reaction times. All your cognitive functions are not going to be operating at full capacity. So again, it's very dangerous. Driving is certainly something that you need to be at your best every time you get out there, because otherwise, we could see some really poor consequences.
Yeah.
I think, and I like the example you gave of the glove box because, and maybe I'm just tired of hearing my phone ding. So I put my phone on vibrate, and then traditionally or typically what I like to do is stick it in my purse, and my purse goes on the floor. So I almost can't reach it.
Sure.
And then, of course, all the new cars have the nice, hands-free touch, options where I can just push the button on the steering wheel and make a phone call or whatnot, or, answer the phone call. And that is all still allowed, is the hands-free talking on the phone?
Yes, hands-free Bluetooth you can use. You can use put a phone in a mount where you with one finger touch. You're allowed to do that.
And those are fantastic. I've seen those at the store where you can just like suction cup them to the
Bend them to
window,
your
bend
hand.
them, put them, in the center console. But yeah, that's perfect.
You just can't have it in your hand or supported by any part of your body. So you can't have it on your leg or between your legs or anything
Yep.
like that. It needs to be in a mount or use your Bluetooth. And if you have family members that, the older generations don't know how to use the technology as well, and if they don't know how to hook up the Bluetooth, go help your grandparents out, set up the Bluetooth for them, show them how to use it. The less distractions, the better for everyone.
Absolutely. Great examples. Where can drivers find more information on distracted driving and just driving safety in general?
Well, the PennDOT website's always a great resource. So if they go to penndot.pa.gov/safety, they'll find an array of information and resources about not only distractions, but impaired driving, aggressive driving, bicycles, and even pedestrian safety. So all those things are relevant, especially now as we're getting into some warmer weather. People might be out and about. Just things that you should keep in mind and are always good reminders.
That made me think about like 4 more shows that we should have you back on to talk about, like aggressive driving and and bus stop safety. I want to talk about all of those things. So is there any one last thought that you want to leave our viewers with, and maybe mention that date that the law goes into effect one more time?
So I just wanted to say that safety is really a two-way street, and it takes everybody to achieve it. So whether you're a pedestrian or riding a bicycle or you're driving a car, everybody has a role to play in this. So just be mindful of the laws. Make sure that you're exercising caution when you're out there. We want everybody to get home to their families safely at night. That's the ultimate goal. So just show respect and give people space when you're out on the roads and share the road.
Wonderful.
And from a township perspective, this new law is supported by the supervisors, by the chief, by all the administrators of the department. So this is something that we are going to enforce aggressively just as an educational tool, so people can, before it starts costing money, they can learn the new laws and learn how to use their cellular equipment properly.
And June 5th will be the day that enforcement begins. So June 5th to June 5th, 2026 will be the warning period, and then they'll start implementing fines from there.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show here with us today.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I definitely want to have you back and talk about more road safety. I think it's just such an important topic for our community. So thank you so much for both being
Thanks
here.
again for having us.
Viewers, again, this was a really informational show, and we learned a lot about Paul Miller's law and how it's going to affect us here in Millcreek Township. I want you to, again, tune into PennDOT's website for more information on this, and I want to thank you for viewing and tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel. Until next time, have a great day.